Good evening. Hope everyone's doing well. Glad to say I'm feeling better today. Still weak, exhausted. Not quite as bad as I was yesterday, but it's still there. Um, that's honestly what concerns me is the weakness and the lack of energy. Not that you know I'm a natural meth head or nothing. Um, that day passed a long time ago. I used to be full of energy, absolutely full of energy, and that's gone away as I've gotten older. And I wished I was a little less energetic back in the day, and maybe could have retained a little bit of the energy for now. But yeah, so is life. I don't think it works that way anyway, to be honest. So, the big talk of the day. I'm sure you've already heard now a couple of hundred times about the massive blackout that hit Portugal and Spain and up into France. And as usual, it's something that we can't get away from. As usual, you have the YouTube channels flocking to it with their opinions. And I word it that way very intentionally because most of these folks don't use a shred of science to come up with any of their conclusions, their opinions. They just, people that want it to be a cyber attack, oh, it was a cyber attack. People that want it to be something else, well, it was something else. But you'll never see them actually dig up any data to support their viewpoint. And they're not, most of these people I don't think believe half of the stuff they say. They say it to get people to click. And it's sad because if you know where to look, you can find the information that you're looking for. You just have to know where to look, and your motivation has to be truth, not what you want to hear. And that right there is a hard sell in today's society because everybody wants it to be the way they want it to be, regardless of what the truth or the facts of the matter are. So, like I said, massive blackout today. Again, sure you've heard about it many times. Says a huge power outage struck Spain and Portugal at around noon on Monday, paralyzing public transport and delaying flights. The cause of the blackout has not been officially determined, although an EU grid operator cited a rare atmospheric phenomenon as a possible factor. The governments of the two EU nations have convened emergency cabinet meetings following the outage, which also briefly affected parts of France. In Spain, blackouts were reported in Seville, Barcelona, and Pamplona, I can't remember how they pronounce that, with additional disruptions in Valencia. Metro services in Madrid and Barcelona were suspended, forcing passengers to evacuate trains and walk along tracks, according to footage circulating online. Telephone lines were reportedly down across much of Spain, and Madrid's main airport was left without power. Hundreds of people stood outside of office buildings on Madrid streets, and there was a heavy police presence around key buildings directing traffic and patrolling central atriums with lights, according to Reuters, citing witnesses. So, pretty crazy events going on today. So, what happened? Right? That's the big question. What happened? And I was hoping that Ben Davison would, at some point this afternoon or evening, maybe give us a little bit of insight, in which he absolutely did. He had a live stream earlier today, and let's see. I don't remember how long it was. That's what I'm trying to find. Da-da-da. Aha. Yeah, 49-minute live stream today. And, I understand a lot of people don't want to sit down and listen to a 49-minute video just to get the cliff notes of what went on. So I took the liberty. Hopefully Ben shows me grace. I believe he will. No copyright is intended. But I took a little snippet from his live stream to where he broke it down as to what happened. And I want to play that video because I think it's really important to understand what's going on. And then I've got a few comments about things he said after the clip that I'm going to be showing you. So here's Ben Davison, small clip from his live stream this afternoon.
If you recall yesterday's top story, you don't need significant space weather to have electromagnetic events that are very powerful on the atmosphere. That was what yesterday morning's top story was about the space hurricanes and how they funnel charged particles down into the atmosphere even during the quietest of geomagnetic solar storm times. Even if there's nothing going on, they can still cause significant plasma penetration into the atmosphere, leading to significant atmospheric disruptions. Now, not only did we see that today, it was very, very dramatically extended down the longitudes into the North Atlantic region. For those of you who really are into a lot of the data, and you're one of those people who goes to the Space Weather Prediction Center from NOAA and looks at all the charts, go down to, I gotta figure out exactly what they call this thing. I have it saved so I don't even look anymore. Hold on. The GLOTEC, GLOTEC. In the morning hours, which will be easy for you to tell, even if you're not in Europe, and even if you don't understand universal time, because these maps that they've got of the total electron content, average, departure from 30-day mean, the F-layer maps, they all have the day and night, light versus dark. So as the timeline is moving on the animation, you can see which part of the world is in daylight and which part is in night. When the Euro area and the North Atlantic comes out of nighttime in those first hours of the morning, watch for the flashing. Watch for the flashing there in the North Atlantic. And then in the F layer, watch how it shoots right at the Rock of Gibraltar, which if you don't know where that is, it's basically right at the mouth of the Mediterranean. It's a famous thing in history that has sunk many, many ships over the years. Fun little rabbit hole if you want to go down that one. This was not the sun. It was not Russia. It was not China. It was not hacking. And it was not the extreme heat. This was a weak spot in Earth's magnetic field, allowing a solar wind plasma penetration, which dramatically excited the ionosphere sealing of the global electric circuit to the point where I'm sure some of that spread out through the ionospheric waveguide, but an enormous amount of it didn't. It just shot straight down in the global electric circuit. And there's actually something I haven't checked. I just need to make sure of this for a second. earth.nullschool.net. Let's take a look at the pressure there so we can, when you look at the pressure cells, those of you who are veteran observers, you can tell where the atmospheric energy is coming up and going down. So give me a second here. There's one little low pressure cell just northwest of Portugal. But the entirety of the Europe mainland, high pressure. One of the strongest high pressure cells in the world, which is downward electric current, dead over the North Atlantic. That's exactly where I'm sitting here looking at this. This is exactly where the flash took place on the total electron content. I'm sorry, you can't see what I'm looking at. You're just looking at me. That's got to be real annoying. I'm sorry about that. But okay, so I can see it went right down into that high pressure cell, curved along the global electric circuit lateral forcing by the low pressure cell right next to it, and directly into Portugal, Spain, and France. And as it wraps up around the low pressure cell, that's northwestern France, isn't it? Yeah. I didn't expect to see anything different than that. I just wanted to check and make sure that there wasn't an enormous hole in what I was saying to you. And of course, there's not. We have been getting way too much. I'm going to transition slightly. We've been getting too much on this front in terms of news about how bad Earth's magnetic field is doing, about news on the solar system shift, things happening throughout the solar system.
And he went on and he talked, obviously, talked a little bit more. And then he made a statement, and I didn't clip that part, but he made a statement about how this gives him another data point to be able to adjust his time scale, his time frame a little bit. And because Ben, not that long ago, had the realization that we don't have as much time as what he initially thought. Now, there is only one thing that I have debated Ben Davison about in all these years, been over a decade, and that was the timing. And that was because, no offense to Ben, but I trust my source a lot more than any man walking the earth. So I think he's going to have to update again, and he was talking about how this will provide him with data points to be able to make closer updates as time goes on. It's important to pay attention to, because none of us can tell you. We can't. And anybody who says they can are full of it. None of us can tell you when the nastiness of the flip is going to happen. Not a single one of us. We can give you guesses based on the best science that we could use, but none of us can tell you when it's going to happen. Don't trust anybody that claims they can. It's the only place I've disagreed with Ben on in all this time. And I have said, in the 2030s, I think I was thinking mid to late 2030s, but now I'm thinking a little bit more early 2030s. And possibly even before we hit the 2030s. It's not something that we have a way to calculate because we don't have any data from when it's previously happened to be able to work off of. So we're kind of stuck with giving our best guess. This stuff is really real. And, I didn't know when I heard about the blackouts. And I wasn't going to throw my opinion any direction until information came out. And they pretty early on, they ruled out a cyber attack. And I know there's a lot of people claiming it was a cyber attack. It was not a cyber attack. They ruled that out pretty early on. As Ben had said prior to the video clip you saw, there's no real space weather to mention. We don't have incoming CMEs. We don't have everything's pretty quiet on the space weather front at this moment. But Ben done a great job, a masterful job of explaining what it was that did go on and provided his scientific basis for why he thought that. And I'm gonna go with Ben on this. I think he hit the nail on the head. And I expected that if it had anything to do with the Earth's magnetism or anything related to it, that he would catch what happened. And it looks like indeed he did. I've got one other thing to talk about on this topic, and we'll move on. I've got several articles tonight. One of them I think is kind of funny. At least how I got it set up is kind of funny. Look, folks, I keep hearing it over and over and over this Hollywood Mad Max scenario. That is not how things happen. I mentioned it before. I'll bring up Hurricane Helene and North Carolina again. Mentioned it before. Right after it happened, in the thick of it, when people were busting their asses, doing everything they could to help one another, the comment was made multiple times that the people out there that were working, that were trying to help others, they weren't Democrats, they weren't Republicans, they weren't whatever, all these different identity boxes that are set out there for us to climb in. They were Americans. Americans helping Americans. Folks, that is what's going to happen. I'm not saying there won't be any darkness, and I'm not saying that there isn't going to be bad actors, because there most certainly are. But there are much more good actors out there ready to act than otherwise. I know, because I lead a group of people that have that exact intention. I also know that I am in contact with groups around the country, and even some outside of the country, that they're not a part of YouTube. They laugh more at the YouTube preppers than what I do. They want nothing to do with the entertainment side of preparedness. All right, these are real people that have a goal, and that goal is not to try to make money or take advantage of people, or no, they've got a true, serious goal, and they're very focused on it. And let me tell you what, there are a lot of groups around this country, a lot of groups. You can call them mag groups if you want. I would hold the term militia very, very loosely. I believe that most of them most certainly have a militia part to them, but their primary focus is helping other people. And I can tell you that. I can tell you. Howdy, Kenny. Howdy, Kevin. Yeah, I agree. Last days that the earth will be tossed to and fro. That is absolutely correct. But we don't know. And what we can assess is that it will be gradual up to that point. But then once we reach that tipping point, if you will, it will be all of a sudden. And that's when you're going to have the great tidal waves spoke about in Revelation, all of the winds, all of the flooding and the storms, and just everything that Revelation describes happens at that very last moment when the actual flip happens. But folks, don't think that the world is going to be an instant Mad Max when something major happens. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Even in some truly nasty, desperate places, it hasn't worked in the manner in which preppers and Hollywood want you to think it happens. Like it's some overnight Mad Max. Everybody's trying to kill everybody for their can of peaches stuff. And that's not the case. And I can tell you that I am in contact, pretty common contact, I talk to these folks all the time, with many groups around the United States. Many. Believe me, we were doing what we do long before people got on YouTube trying to fearmonger the hell out of everybody as to why they needed to buy a year's worth of freeze-dried food. We were talking about it way before that. And working out plans, and we spent a lot of time talking about and discussing how this was going to shake out. And there wasn't a single person in a single group that was in disagreement when we got done with our discussion. Hang on. Not a single person. Yeah, there will be bad actors. But that's the whole point of putting together teams of good actors before an event like that happens, so that the good actors can deal with the bad actors before the bad actors do much damage. Just the way it is. But it's not going to be common like everybody. It's not going to be that the power goes out and in 10 minutes you got Mad Max coming down your street. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. First of all, and I can only speak for here. I can't speak for what it's like in a city or anywhere else. I can only speak for where I sit. If the power were to go out in 5 minutes, never to come back on, the first thing that would happen, and if this was across the entire United States, meaning the internet was down, because if the internet wasn't down, you would have a bunch of Highlanders on the Facebook group asking who all lost power, okay? But let's say all the power in the U.S. went down, no internet, and what would that look like? Well, it would start out with people walking outside of their house and neighbors looking at one another going, wonder what the hell's going on. That's how it starts. It doesn't start with Mad Max barreling down the street trying to take out everybody they see for their can of peaches. It doesn't. That's nonsense, and don't let prepper channels bullshit you into thinking that that's how it's going to shake out. It is a lie. They are doing this because, one, they are completely ignorant to the facts. They are going by Hollywood for their preparedness ideals and not reality. And it is what it is. And that's why you see the disconnect. These people don't want anything to do with the YouTube preppers or the entertainment prepping industry, as they call it. They label it that, the entertainment prepping industry. As a group, as a whole, that's what we call it. Because that's what it is. It's a bunch of nonsense, people just trying to make money, get views, I guess gain popularity. I never did see the excitement in being a popular person. That, to me, but there again, I'm a different person. I don't want to be the guy in the limelight. I want to be the guy in the corner that just does his work and does it as well as he can and is as helpful as I can. I don't need all kinds of limelight and recognition, and I don't care. If I see a need, I fill it. That's what I was taught. If you see a need, you fill it. That's what I do. So don't let these folks fearmonger you. They've been at it all day, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So anyway, moving on. Had a tragedy, and I'm still waiting to hear more details. I just refreshed this article just in case more details have been released. But a tragic incident, I'm going to guess, pardon me, I'm going to guess that we're probably roughly close to 40 miles away from it, because they say St. Louis is about 40 miles away from it. There's a town called Chatham in Illinois that's near, pretty close to Springfield. And absolutely crazy. I'm waiting to hear more information. Oops, sorry. Gave you the wrong screen. I'm waiting to hear more information on it. But either this was a very serious medical incident, or it was somebody with very serious intent. It was one of the two. Either way, it's not good. Prayers for everybody involved. 4 people have died in a car crash. 4 people have died after a car crashed into an after-school program building in Chatham, Illinois. According to the Chatham Police Department, the incident happened at the Why Not after-school daycare at 301 Breckenridge Road around 3:20 p.m. on Monday. Police said that the vehicle hit multiple people outside of the building before going through the building and exiting on the other side. So either they were in medical distress and just couldn't help it, couldn't do anything, or this was an extremely deliberate act. One of the two. Let's see. 3 people hit outside of the building and 1 person hit inside of the building have died. Several people were taken to hospital with injuries, including one person who was airlifted from the scene. This is the sad part. Illinois State Police later said the ages of the victims who died are between 4 and 18. The driver of the vehicle was taken to the hospital for evaluation after the incident. A reunification point has been set up at Chatham Baptist Church. There is 95 miles away from St. Louis. My apologies. They changed this article a little bit. For one, they took out the uninjured word. It did say something to the effect of the uninjured driver was taken to the hospital for evaluation after the incident. And I'm not saying that has any bearing on any of it, but I just find it interesting that that was changed. So no information at all, and they know. I mean, they know. If it wasn't a medical incident, which should have been obvious, then it was intentional. And they know. All they got to start doing is looking into the person who was behind the wheel and find out whether or not they had relation to anybody in there, if there was any ongoing custody disputes or anything like that. They know. It's sad they make everybody else wait, but, oh wow, Chatham over on Cape Cod, huh? I had to look this up earlier, and I knew it said near Springfield, but and I thought KMOV or First Alert 4, I thought they said something about 40 miles, but I'm mistaken on that. 95 is what they say, so we're probably going to be roughly 75, 80 miles away from where this happened. But it's a tragic incident. Man, I really hope. I mean, I don't hope for it either way, but I hope it wasn't intentional. I mean, that's just unfathomable. And I can't hardly say the words, so bear with me there. So anyway, change the topic. Let's shift gears here a little bit. This is a lot of bit. And Steve, if you happen to be out there, you're probably going to appreciate this, brother. Trump suggests Canadians... Oh, you might want to see it, huh? Trump suggests Canadians should vote for him. Mainly the important part is that you see that headline, right? So, one of my questions is why? Why should Canadians vote for Trump? And, you can make up your list of reasons. You could draw the line in the middle of the paper and put your pros and your cons. But at this particular moment in time, the most important help that we could provide for Canada right now is to deal with their horrific tragedy going on. Obviously you didn't hear about it? Well, the Canadian military had to issue a goose alert. That's right. The geese. They're going to invade, and it says it right here. Soldiers and staff have been told what to do if they encounter the infamously aggressive birds. Right? For one, make sure that they use pronouns. That's important, because if these aggressive creatures aren't using pronouns, that's the first level of disrespect. And if we can stop that, maybe they won't be so aggressive, and maybe we can get them to stop overrunning the defense headquarters in Ottawa. I mean, we could try. We could even maybe come up with some type of nuclear doctrine to which we could present the geese and say, like, hey, look, if you don't stop attacking the Canadian military with just such aggressiveness, we're going to nuke you. We're going to push that button. Either that or we could clip their wings. I don't know. There's got to be a solution. Maybe we just clip their wings and tell them, walk around and think about what you did. Maybe we should do that. Maybe that. I like that idea. Clip their wings and tell them to walk around for a bit and think about their actions. Sounds like a perfect response. Holy cow. I mean, you can't make that up. Well, that in part you obviously can, but you just can't make that part up. They're independent. They're fierce. Oh shit, geese. Hurry up, get inside the building, close the windows. Don't let them honk at you. Alright, moving on. A little more serious of a topic. Moderna risks UK suspension over cash and toys offered to kids, says media. Mighty interesting. Says U.S. big pharma company Moderna could be suspended or expelled from a UK trade body after breaches of industry rules, including offering children cash and teddy bears to take part in the COVID vaccine trials, the Telegraph has reported. Now, see, that's against their laws over there to do that kind of stuff. Here, they encourage it. They encourage it. You've not seen the little bitty bears with Pfizer on them and whatnot? I have. I've seen them, and I'm very rarely ever in a doctor's office. I've seen them. I can't say my children have been given any of them. I don't necessarily think that the ones that the doctors here get are to give away. I think that they're to put on the desk so that people can see it. Oh, look at the cute bear from Pfizer. I think I'll take 5 vaccines, please. That's an awful cute bear. That's kind of the logic. It's crazy. It says Moderna, which joined the Association of British Pharmaceutical Industry in 2023, now faces an audit that could result in its suspension or expulsion. I guess it's not a law, it's just a rule with the association. A new ruling is expected to be published in the coming days, according to the Telegraph. If sanctioned, it would become the 10th firm to face suspension from the ABPI in the past 40 years, the newspaper wrote. So clearly, it's not something that the ABPI constantly does. They don't just constantly suspend people and kick them out of their association. It's got to be for a reason, clearly. And I'd say that's a pretty good reason. Hey, Camel had to give up its whole sales trend that it had going on with their Camel Dollar or Camel Bucks. You know, Marlboro had to quit with their Marlboro Bucks, and everybody had to quit all this stuff. And, well, you can't advertise cigarettes in magazines. You can't advertise... I don't know. I don't think you can advertise them in magazines. I think that was outlawed, too. But I know you can't advertise them on TV. I don't believe you can radio. All that. But boy, there damn sure are a lot of pharmaceutical commercials on TV. Maybe that needs fixed too. Because I honestly, I don't see much of a difference. I don't. Whether it's Marlboro or whether it's Pfizer or Moderna, I don't see much of a difference. I don't. Just don't. It's sad to say, but it's the way it is. And in more medical news, man, I am whipping through it tonight. I've only got 3 more articles left. That's okay. I am on the fence on this one. I gotta be honest. Robots will outperform human surgeons in 5 years, says Musk. I think he's very likely correct. It says robots will soon replace human surgeons and are already capable of carrying out operations that are considered impossible for ordinary people to perform, Elon Musk has predicted, like the LASIK eye surgery and stuff like that. It's got to be done by a robot. Humans can't do that. We don't have that much control over our hands to be able to do such precise work like that. We don't. It says in a post on X Saturday, the billionaire tech entrepreneur suggested that in just a few years, robots will surpass good human surgeons and will beat the best doctors within about 5 years. And honestly, I would say that's probably correct. He noted that his Neuralink biotech company has already had to rely on robot surgeons to carry out the brain-computer electrode insertion of brain chips because of the required speed and precision is impossible for a human to achieve. Same with like the LASIK surgery. Musk's comments came in response to a post by popular ex-influencer Mario Nawfal, who quoted an article about the rising success of robot surgeons such as the Medtronic's Hugo. It is reported that the robot has already been tested in 137 real surgeries, such as fixing prostates, kidneys, and bladders. So, I think, no, I hear you. Really? So you're a marijuana legal state, but you can't buy flavored cigarettes. Well, you're not alone. Illinois is the same way, brother. Illinois is the same way. They banned a lot of the flavored stuff. I don't know exactly how the rule of the law shakes out, but they banned a lot of the flavored stuff. And then they, of course, they legalized marijuana recreationally, which I'm all for. I got into a discussion with somebody today about vaping. And actually, and if you know me, you know this is how the conversations wind up. It was actually on an e-bike site. Somebody was crying that they had posted a screenshot of a company, an e-bike company, and I use that term very loosely, closing down because of the tariffs, right? And the guy's all crying and whining in his post. Not the guy that made the post that I saw, but the original post. The guy was all crying and carrying on about the tariffs and all that because they just don't get it. They don't understand why this is going on. And I tried to explain to them that you pivot. That's what you have to do. The electronic cigarette industry had to constantly make pivots because they kept coming at us from any direction they could to stop us from doing what we were doing. Well, of course, e-cigs are bad for you and blah, 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 blah. These people have no idea about the technology or anything behind it. They just blah, blah, my opinion, my feelings. And, what part of that conversation was I going to point out? Because it was kind of a lengthy conversation. But essentially, I was just trying to explain to him, you have to pivot. You have to pivot. And you have to learn how to overcome those obstacles, We had a shipment. Like, the big storage containers that come over on ships. Right? There were a ton of them that were seized. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but there were a ton of them that were seized because they had vaping supplies on them, right? And the FDA seized them. The FDA, with the help of customs, seized these shipping containers. I know because I had thousands of dollars sitting in one of those shipping containers that I still have not received to this day. My name is actually on the restraining order along with a ton of other names that was put on the FDA to prevent them from confiscating more shipments. And it's been a battle. And we could have all started crying and threw up our hands and said, "Oh," but we didn't. We stuck with it. We found ways to work around their BS. When they started to implement the whole shipping rules, because they were going to block anybody from being able to ship anything containing the liquid nicotine. I think it was nicotine, period, which would include, cigarettes, cigars, any of it. Well, here's the thing. We pivoted. What did we do? We stopped selling juices that had nicotine in them. Instead, the customer would tell us what their nicotine strength was, or what their mixture was what they, we had to know what they needed as far as the volume, And we would fill up the bottles with everything except for the nicotine and leave the room in the bottle for them to finish it off with the nicotine themselves. So we didn't just start crying and all run away. And no, we made a pivot. We did what we had to do to still make our products legal to send via mail, and yet everybody wind up getting what they want. You have to pivot. And I even told them, where's the idea, what's the problem with a bunch of these quote-unquote bike shops, because they're not bike shops, folks. I've got a vinyl cutter behind me. You guys know that. I've been cutting vinyl for a long time. Okay? If I bulk order bikes, just generic bikes, and by the way, that's what this guy was doing. That's why I'm pointing this out. If I bulk buy bikes, electric bikes, from China, and then when I receive them, cut out my vinyl decals advertising my bike business, and put it on the side of the battery like this cat was doing, I'm not really a bike business, am I? I think I'm more of a grifter. That's it. I'm not doing anything to further the technology. I'm not doing anything except trying to turn a profit from a product. And if these people were serious and were really interested in saving the e-bike industry, then maybe they would work together with one another to start an e-bike manufacturing business in the United States. Oh, that's just logic there. That's just logic. They're not interested in that because they don't care about the e-bike industry. Not in the least. They care about making money. Those people that care about the e-bike industry will pivot. And one of those pivots will be creating manufacturing jobs here in the United States of America for electric bicycles. And when somebody does that, guess what? When they go to achieve that, there's a whole lot of components on those bikes that we don't make. Look at all of the jobs created. All the jobs created just by starting e-bike manufacturing. Because you're going to put a higher demand on things like enamel-coated wire and everything else. Everything else. And those are all more and more jobs for American people. These folks don't understand that. They don't get it. Not something they understand because it's not instant gratification. They want that instant gratification, and I'm sorry, there's a point that comes to which we have to stop expecting that. And we have to actually expect to put an effort in what we do. I don't know how I got all the way there from robots outperforming human surgeons, but we made that trip. I know I'm bad about that, so sorry. I ramble a lot. It happens. It's me. At least I don't put on some fake face for everybody. I don't put on some fake accent and some fake ego, and at least I don't do that. I might ramble a lot, but I'm not fake. So anyway, we've got a no duh article up next, and it has to do with medical. But it also goes to prove that, unfortunately, other countries are more interested about getting to the bottom of things than the United States is. That's not surprising to me, especially in the medical industry. Why do I say this? Well, let's go back to the e-cig thing again, okay? The UK was putting vape shops in their hospitals, and they made a concerted effort to convert female pregnant, men can't get pregnant, female pregnant smokers. They focused on that, trying to get them to switch to vaping, because their actual studies, the studies that were done to actually find out the truth, not the studies that were done and paid for, privately in order to get results that we want, they realized that, nothing's harmless. And while it's not harmless, it's not even an inkling as harmful as smoking cigarettes. Not even close. I tried to explain to this guy, because one guy was trying to say, my parents died of cancer. What do you want me to do? What does that prove? Telling me your parents died of lung cancer does nothing. Now, if you tell me that they vaped their entire life and died of lung cancer, that tells me something. But just telling me that your parents didn't make it to 70 years old and they died of lung cancer because they were smokers says nothing other than what science has proven for a long damn time, that smoking is hazardous to your health. We already knew this. But let's break it down. Why is it hazardous to your health? What is it that is hazardous to your health? It's not the nicotine. Your body needs at least a certain level of nicotine, and most of the time we get it out of things like fruits, like tomatoes. I'm not saying your body needs a lot of nicotine, but there is an amount that our body needs. We normally get it from fruits and stuff like that. Nicotine does not cause cancer. There is not a single link anywhere to nicotine and cancer. Not a single one. What there is a link to is the tar that you get from smoking a combustible tobacco cigarette that gets left on your lungs. That's where the problem is. You don't have any of that with vaping. There is nothing that's left on your lungs. Your lungs absorb the nicotine, you get your fix, and it's all gone. There is nothing left to be retained by the body. But yet this guy is trying to tell me that because his parents who smoked died before they were 70, vaping was bad. Now how that corresponds to one another, I have no idea. But the UK was the ones that was out telling the truth first. And looky here. UK to test mental state of transgender kids, says the media. Finally. This is something that should have been done long ago. Because this is a mental illness. Okay? It's not something to celebrate. It's not something to empower. It's not something that you want to be in any way involved and encouraging, because it is mental illness. I'm not poking at people with mental illness. I'd be poking at myself. You do not, I'm trying to think of the word, and the word's just not coming to my tongue. Not empower. I think it's a word that starts with an E, and it means contributing to something bad that somebody does. I can't remember. I'm having a brain fart. But anyway, enable. That's it. Enable. You do not enable people with mental illness. That's not helping them. It's not. And it doesn't mean you have to be a horse's ass or anything like that to them either. It just means not to enable them. Why? Because it's a mental illness. And left ignored or empowered, it's going to get worse. Right? You got a hole in your pants, and you keep jabbing your finger in the hole. Is it going to make the hole bigger, or is it going to automatically just magically stitch up? Obviously, you're going to make the hole bigger. If somebody's got mental illness and you feed into their mental illness, you're making it worse. You are harming that person, which is why I think that parents that push this stuff on their children need to be imprisoned and charged with child abuse, along with many other things. Just the way it is. The British National Health Service will conduct autism screenings for all children who identify as transgender, the Telegraph has reported. Under the new NHS guidance seen by the outlet, every child referred to a gender clinic will be screened for conditions including attention and ADHD, autism, learning disabilities, and mental health issues that may, listen to this, that may be contributing to their distress. Right? That doesn't sound to me like what's happening to them is positive. The word distress doesn't seem to sound good to me. Goes on to say, given, and I quote, given the high prevalence of neurodiversity identified within this population, all those attending the NHS Children and Young People's Gender Service should receive screening for neurodevelopmental conditions according to the new specifications cited by the newspaper. A multidisciplinary team of doctors and psychologists will reportedly evaluate 8 key aspects of a child's life, including their sexual orientation, family relationships, and complete medical history. You might want to look at political leanings of the parents, too. The guidance follows a review led by Hilary Cass, a retired consultant pediatrician and former president of the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health. The review into gender services emphasized the importance of viewing distressed children as whole people rather than solely through the lens of their gender identity. Imagine that. Common sense coming back to psychology? Say it ain't so. I sure hope that this is contagious and it spreads worldwide, because this is what we need. Common sense medicine, like we used to have. Anyway, just insane. Just insane. Got one more for you, but I gotta have a drink of coffee and a vape or two, so I can give myself lung cancer. It just blows my mind when people want to assert their opinion with a lot of times stuff they just make up on the spot. Sorry, bruh. Been kind of involved with it for over a decade. I know it, just a scotch about it. I don't put much of anything in this body without having some knowledge of what it is I'm putting in my body. Except for a particular time period in which I was putting a whole bunch of stuff into my body that I didn't know a whole lot about. But it felt really good. I know that. Thankful those days are over. And honestly, those days weren't as long ago as what you probably think. Before I met Jen. Just like the time period just before I met Jen. But, you know, I did dumb things. That's all there is to say. I was so discouraged with my life, and honestly, I didn't care. Didn't care. It did freak me out, though, when I almost made myself blind. That freaked me out. And I did calm down after that. Apparently, and I think it was a stimulant part of it. No, not meth. I've never been into meth. apparently, if you take it, I believe it was the stimulant part of it. It was, I'll just tell you, it was very similar to MDMA or ecstasy. That's what it was. That, oh my God, that is an incredible feeling. But if you take it long enough for a long enough duration, nonstop, it will actually cause the pressure of your optic nerve to increase. And it starts out with causing you tunnel blindness, and that's what I started out with. I had tunnel blindness. Freaked me out. You can better believe I was on the internet finding out what I did real quick. So once I found out what was going on, what I did, I just abstained. Completely abstained, right? I mean, that's the only common sense thing to do. And my eyes continued to get worse for a good day or so, day and a half. And it got to the point to where I could hardly even see at all. About the best I can do is, or best I could do, was I had to put a set of brake pads on the back of a Ford Focus, right? True story. And there's a guy that comes in the chat once in a while. His name is Frank. I can't remember what nickname he's using now. Once in a while he comes into the chat. And he had to help me change these brake pads on this Ford Focus because I couldn't see very well. And the most I could do was like, I think I put something over glasses or something and then put them on so that I couldn't see through the glasses. And if I recall correctly, I would just kind of lift it up and take a peek, lift it up and take a peek while we were doing these brakes. And then another day or so of just abstaining and not being stupid, my eyesight came back. But you better damn well believe that I think that affected my vision. I'd never had to wear glasses before. Never had to wear glasses before. And I don't know that I did immediately after that. But it wasn't real long after that. Sure enough, I started to where I couldn't read print. Like if I was trying to read a newspaper on my monitor right here, I couldn't. It was a bit fuzzy. Not completely. I could make it out, but I had to strain to do it. And it did cause my eyes to hurt, and I didn't get headaches, but I went to the dollar store and got me some cheapo readers, and that's what I've been doing ever since. I do need to get to the eye doctor, and I don't know how I'm going to manage that, but I do need to get a proper eye examination and proper lenses and stuff, because just throwing guesses at your eyesight with buying readers could actually do you more harm than good. So anyway, I never did take my vape. Let me do so. Yeah, don't do drugs, kids, okay? That was a crazy period. Probably the craziest period of my entire life, to be honest. Because I was not a person that I even want to think about being. I just wasn't. That wasn't good for anybody. Like I said yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I got no problem telling you about the stupid things I've done. Because if I can prevent one person from going down that same path, I'll eat that humble pie. I don't need to have an ego, never have, never will. I think egos are stupid. They totally turn me off, turn me away. I hate using the word turn me off because it makes it sound sexual, but it totally turns me away. Because there's only one that is all that, and that's the Father. That's it. Anybody else that wants to stick their head up in the crowd, nah, not interested. Not interested, because every single one of us, we're on the same level. It doesn't matter whether you're Donald Trump. It doesn't matter whether you're Justin Trudeau. It doesn't matter whether you're Kevin Sawyer. We're all on the same level. We're all on the same level. and there's only one above us. And I thank the Father for that, because that provides more clarity than anything. And there is no way that I could have straightened out my life without him. And he was already a part of my life at the time, just not as big of a part of my life as what I should have made him. Howdy, Hetty Hayes. Exactly, we all shit the same. Some days it's a little messier than others, but hey, it's all the same. I hate that, by the way. Go in there, you gotta do your business, and you're in there for 20 minutes wiping. So anyway, we'll stop talking about that. Alright, last article I got for you. China denies Trump's Z call claim. And there's been several comments about conversations not happening that Trump has said happened. Apparently, again, this is the instance. It says China's foreign ministry has refuted U.S. President Donald Trump's claim that he recently spoke with President Xi Jinping. Speaking to the press in a sealing on Monday, the ministry noted that neither side is working toward a tariff agreement. In an interview with Time magazine published on Friday, Trump claimed that his administration was in talks with China to reach a tariff agreement and that President Xi had called him. Beijing has repeatedly denied any such discussions and are underway and accused Washington of misleading the public. And this is what I was going to speak to that. Goes on to say he's called, and I don't think that's a sign of weakness on his behalf, Trump said in an interview referring to Xi. The American president did not say, however, when the call took place or specify what was discussed. So, here's the thing. Did he talk with Xi Jinping or anybody else in the Chinese government? Don't know. I don't trust either, to be honest. I don't trust either of them, to tell the truth, because both of them have a motive to claim their stories, right? Trump wants to claim that everything's going as smooth as possible and that these countries are working with him, which largely has not been the case. So I know he's lying about a lot of those instances, but, at the same time, you've got China that needs to, in their mind, show that their citizens that they're strong, they're tough, and they don't need to negotiate, that they have the upper hand. And so I can see a motivation for either side lying about the talks, and the only thing that we can do is let time, because it'll come out. In time, it will come out. That's why I'm very careful when news comes out. I don't want news to be anyway. Of course I want news to be good, but aside from that, I don't have a predisposed notion about what I want the news to be. When I looked at the blackout stuff early this morning, I didn't jump to, okay, it's got to be a solar flare. I didn't do that. Why? Because that's not responsible. It's not responsible to any of you, and it damn sure isn't responsible to myself. So I started looking at all the different avenues, all the different possibilities, from just issues to cyber attacks, obviously, to solar flares or anything else. And to be honest, I couldn't find any obvious connection to any of it. None of it. And that's why I was giddy when I saw that Ben Davison had put up that he was going to go live. Because I figured he would at least mention it. Well, lo and behold, that's what his entire live was about. And he explained what it is that did happen. And I showed that video at the very beginning of tonight's show. So if you're joining late or anything like that, you can rewind it. I'll be cutting out here in just a moment. At the very beginning of the show, I played just under 5-minute clip of his almost 50-minute live stream to where he gets down to the nuts and the bolts of what happened. And I got to go with science. You know, if somebody can sit there and show me scientifically what happened, which is what Ben did, I got to go with that. And, you know, we'll see. We'll see. But I'm very careful about just jumping on any news with any predisposition of what I want it to be. Of course, I want everything to be good. But I don't need the news to do anything other than give me the information so that I can relay it to all of you. And so that I know for myself. So I know what I need to do if I need to zig or if I need to zag. It is what it is. Anyway, I am going to hop on out of here. I've got a bunch of notifications, I guess, on Facebook. Not surprising. I've been pretty active over the last couple of days. I don't know. Apparently I found a real big spatula that I could stir that pot with. And I've been spending a couple of days stirring the pot. I gotta admit it. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. I hope you all have a blessed evening. I appreciate you coming. Good night, Hetty and Kevin and who was the name of the other gentleman? Kenny. If you're still out there, good night, folks. I hope you all have a good one. God willing, I'll see you tomorrow night. Shalom.